Well, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Dr. Kim and Colby Leadership Podcast. We hope that you guys are having an incredible February, or as some people like to call it, Single Awareness Month.
Yes, I wasn't really aware of that until you told me that. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's good. And this may be the most exciting show we've ever had.
I think so. Yeah, especially if you're single and you're not aware that you're single. That's
That's right.
Might help it.
No, yeah, I get that, and obviously the other side of February, at the awesome married side, and the stuff that you and Amanda do, is helping people celebrate their relationship. And sometimes if you're just dating or no one's in your life at that time, it's like, oh my gosh, it's February, 14th comes again, and it's like, what do I do? Do I just hibernate like the whatever?
Well, bears.
Is
that what you're trying to say?
Well, what's the guy that comes out of that comes out of the ground?
The gopher?
With a shadow.
Right, the Nantucket gopher.
Is it a gopher?
I know what you're talking about. Why am I woodchuck? No, what is it? What is it that goes? Groundhog. No, there we go. I say it was a groundhog. It was. Okay. Yeah, that comes out. There's guys that do that. They come out of. Think of that's where you're going with. They come out of their hole. And then they go back down. They hide for the rest of the month, February.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, there.
We're gone.
I'm not going to go back and take any chances.
Yeah.
Real problem though in a lot of men's lives today is the fact that they're single and they're looking for Mrs. Right and they're ready to settle down. For a lot of men, that is a major issue, and I think we're seeing a lot of that. I'm talking to men that are having that issue, all sorts of ages. Like, it's not just. In fact, I talked to a gentleman the other day. He's probably 75. He's single currently, but he wants to be married again, and just the reality of what that looks like and working through that is it's challenging, especially the older that you get. But men younger are having issues with that. So today we're talking about that. Obviously, we joke about Single Awareness Month, but for a lot of men, a lot of women, that's a real thing. Valentine's Day is that reminder. I don't have the significant person in my life, and I'm ready for that. So we're just going to talk through some things. Dr. Kim and I have not been single for a while. No. You longer than me, but there's been that we can remember to some degree the desire and the need of wanting to have a spouse and wondering when that will happen and what that will look like, and so we can relate to that degree, but we also are not stupid enough to say, hey, we have all the answers on this one, or that we can fix your problems. But we want to talk about that and give you some potential advice and some help and ways of maybe that you can go about locating Mrs. Right and moving in that direction. So talking about dating today, for those of you single, we know that loneliness, Dr. Kim, is a real problem for a lot of men today. Why is that?
I think a lot of times as guys, we isolate socially. Yeah. And so we don't put ourselves out there for whatever reason. Maybe we don't have self-confidence. Maybe we're afraid we'll have to talk about our feelings. We kind of talked about that in the last episode. Yep. They don't want to be vulnerable. They don't feel they measure up to other men, or they're just intimidated. When I think about if I had to go back in dating now, I would not like it. I don't think. I think it'd be very difficult. And the people I work with in counseling, the guys and women too, honestly, in this, it is not a fun experience for a lot of people. They want to find that person, but the process to find that person can be very scary. And so you go on Tinder, and so you're swiping one way or the other, and you go on Bumble, and you find out more about, and you get all these things, and every one of those can be a little scary, especially if you're looking for a real relationship. You're not looking for just a hookup. You're looking for somebody that I could love and could love me, and we spend the rest of our lives together. And so I think we as men don't put ourselves out there, or we put ourselves in the wrong places.
When you say wrong places, are you talking about you went to a grocery store the other day and that was the wrong place? But that's not what you're relating to. You say, what are some wrong places that you?
No, actually, I've had one couple that been married now for 25 years. They met in the grocery store, met at Walmart at midnight.
I stand corrected.
Because they were both lonely, staying home on a Friday night, decided to go shopping, and their baskets ran into each other in Walmart, and they talked for 2 hours, and then they started dating. So that can happen. I'm thinking more like, and there's no bars. I think that's just, is that really going to be the best place to meet somebody? I don't know. I don't have, my experience has been a lot of, not too many people, that's where they have met.
Yeah.
so I think there's just different places that aren't just the best places to meet somebody.
Yeah, bar is definitely one of those areas. Any place where there's probably compromising situations that can be put in. It depends on kind of the woman that you're looking for, right? Like you could find a woman at a bar, but if you're looking for someone in a specific, to be a certain way or to have a certain set of standards that you have or certain kind of the same, you're probably not going to find them at the bar area. Now, church potentially has a better, in that context, from a Christian man's perspective, has a better chance of finding Mrs. Right there, and having the same values that you do than you would say a bar or typically usually grocery stores, something like that, or any type of dance clubs or environments there that would have put you in compromising positions to some degree, different belief systems.
Yeah.
Correct?
I love what Andy Stanley says when he says, be the person you're looking for is looking for.
Yep.
And so I think as guys, sometimes we go out and we think, we're going to land this hot, great chick, and you haven't shaved in 4 years, and you're not sure when you took a bath last, and you walk up to this girl and she doesn't respond to you, and you think, well, I don't get that. Well, I think we have when you're going out, you need to make sure that if you're looking for somebody that's really special, you want to be special. Yeah. You want that person to look at you and say, I think that guy's pretty special too, because you can be.
It is, and where you're at specifically in your life too, if you are trying to attract future Mrs. spouse, and you are still living we've talked about this the last podcast, but you're living at home with your parents, and there's really no reason that you have to be, like you said, your parents, keeping up with your appearance and making yourself look attractive to some degree, but jobs are important. If you're playing video games, you really have no aspirations. That could also contribute to the fact that you may not be finding Mrs. Right. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I really, in the women that I talk to, and I see a lot of women that want the same thing.
Yep.
They haven't found the right guy yet, but they really want a guy that they know, they want the security of having a husband that will work and that will provide. Yep. Now, most couples both work, but they need to know that if they didn't, that he would still take care of them. And so if you don't even have a job, you're not going to be real attractive. I think those are kind of the high school romances, because nobody had a job, really. Right. And so you fall in love there, and your mom says, I don't think he's going to amount to much. Oh, but he's so good, and he makes pretty good grades. But that doesn't work the same at 25 or 30 than it did in high school. She's going to want to say, I want someone that can help provide, and I want to have kids, and I want someone that can help provide these things.
It makes me think of high school dating relationships, and even as I got older, but that's so true. It's like, oh, this person's amazing, and they're working at the grocery store, and they've got aspirations, they're going to grow to be somebody, and how different it is once you get older. There are a lot of men today, and there was a study that I was looking at the other day, and how men are somewhat behind women when it comes to education. How important do you think it is for men's education to be on par with the woman that they're dating, to have that same level of education experience?
It probably depends on the people, because I think there's some women that would be very important to them that their husband would have a certain level of education. I think I've worked with other couples where one had a degree and the other didn't, but the husband didn't have a degree, was very successful in what he did. And I'm not putting down any job. I'm saying you work and you work hard, and you take that as your responsibility. I've got a friend that I know, and he has been a head waiter at a very nice restaurant for years, and he makes good money, he works hard, and he takes care of his family. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you do as long as you are working and taking care of your family, but you do want to find someone, when you're talking to someone, what are their expectations? What kind of lifestyle do you want? Yeah. And so, because you've got to be on the same page in those things.
And I would even say that, because some of the studies I've looked at and stuff when it comes to men and women is women are exceeding men when it comes to college educations. Like 56% of women are getting educated, 41% of men are receiving college educations. Like they are striving in that capacity, and that is causing some rifts within the dating aspect of things, because the men are not meeting the level of financial security that the woman would like, or she's exceeding him in that capacity, and he's not really striving to do anything else about it. Now, with all that said, I wonder how much of that has to do with the different cultural aspects of different regions of the United States, East Coast, West Coast, Bible Belt, if there's difference in what men and women want.
Yeah, I think there could be. I mean, I think we see that in other areas, but I think in general, the women that I talk to that are single, they want someone, that will provide. They want someone that they can respect. They want someone that they can trust. All those things are very important to them. But I think there are some women that want someone that can maybe communicate more on an intellectual level.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be looking for someone that may be more educated. There's some women that isn't that big a deal to. There's women that use certain skills in their work, but at home they're very content to use those skills and just be in a relationship with somebody that cares about them. So I think you got to look at each individual situation.
Yeah.
What are the expectations? What are my expectations of this woman? What are this woman's expectations of me? Is there a meeting place there?
Do you feel like women are intimidating if they are independent for men? Like if they're financially, they're successful, they're doing what they need, they're paying things, they're they have everything they possibly need. Do you think that's intimidating for men?
I think for some men it is. And I think a lot depends on how the woman handles it.
Yeah.
There's couples I've worked with that honestly, I didn't know till probably 6 months into counseling that she made more than he did because that wasn't an issue with them. And they both had jobs that they liked, and they both respected each other's job situation. Yeah. So again, I think it goes back to there's just a lot of things you need to talk about when you're in a dating relationship, especially if you think this is something that could go the next step.
Do you feel like it's becoming harder and harder to find Mrs. Right in the world or in America today?
I think dating's hard.
Just because of all the
everything that goes into it.
Yeah.
And then I think, again, like we were talking earlier, where do I find that person?
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned some good places. I think church, although sometimes church singles groups can be train wrecks.
Dangerous too. Yep.
So I think to me, the couples, I was thinking through this question, some of the couples that came to my mind that I thought that were single, that really wanted to meet someone and really didn't know what to do, were able to observe something. Maybe they got in a small group. And I know this one couple, and she had been in a bad relationship, been divorced, finally went to a singles group. She watched this guy that each week, if a woman had, hey, my sink's leaking, who can I call? And he goes, I'll come over and do it. And then the next week, somebody else needs something. He goes and does it. And so she went and talked to those women and said, okay, what was the deal? What did he expect after that? Was this just a way to get in your door? She said, no. He was respectful. He fixed it. I thanked him. He left. He wouldn't take any money. And so she began to observe this guy. And so finally one day they happened to sit together in the singles group, and he looked at her after and said, let's go get coffee. And she goes, okay. And they started dating. But I think that was so cool for both of them. They were able to get to know each other without being like this and observe each other. I think
the pressure was
great.
There.
The pressure wasn't there. Great situation. And you get to observe someone without them being on point, so to speak, because if I'm going out with somebody for the first time, I'm going to try to do my best, I'm not going to try to fool them, but I'm going to be on my best behavior.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do something stupid.
You're not going to try to shut them down, I read an article where the woman's, she was dating a guy, I think this was their third date, and he basically had just expressed to her all the women that he'd slept with and prostitutes, and that was his goal. Whatever the reason was for sharing that, obviously there was no more the impression of like, oh, this guy's a good guy. Like you kind of took it to another level. Like there's a level and a limit, but you don't get that always by just jumping into a relationship. Observing, watching, listening, talking to other friends, family members if you can, about this person is huge.
And sometimes it's hard to talk to an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, but some people I've had that have done that got real good information. I had one lady that she had really gotten serious with this guy. She knew that this guy had been in a long-term relationship with this woman and broke up, and he just had said, we just decided that we need to go separate directions. So she called the girl and talked to her, and the girl said, that's exactly right. We decided we respected each other, but we saw this really wasn't going to go to marriage, so we decided let's separate as friends and go. So that gave her the information to go ahead and go, I'm going to go forward with this relationship.
Which is, I mean, that's
I don't know that you could contact everybody's ex, but I think
it doesn't always work for everybody, but it's a possibility.
Yeah, you just want information. And the other side of it, I think that I've seen a couple of guys that got in trouble with, they really tried to be and starting out dating someone they were not.
Yeah.
And so this girl fell in love with somebody that wasn't him. And so then what do? Then all of a sudden you got to realize, God, she's in love with me A, but I'm really me B. How do I let her know that? Because if I don't keep being A, she won't like me, but I can't live the rest of my life being A when I'm really B. And so that was a mess. And so that didn't work. Next time he was
more himself.
He was more himself.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we want to impress as guys. I mean, I wanted to impress Nancy.
Yeah.
I wanted her to think I was cool in college and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think I ever tried to be somebody I wasn't. I just tried to be maybe the best version of myself for her, which was kind of different than trying to be somebody I wasn't.
And she's going to, the longer that you are together, the more that she's going to realize that the less you have to continually put on best versions, and you can become more and more of like, okay, I'm a human being too, which is, and vice versa, it goes both ways, because then there's trust and there's mutual respect and there's admiration, and you know that person's committed regardless of your flaws or your, it becomes easier. But just to jump in there, like you're saying, and say, well, I'm showing up with, I did this one time with a girl I was dating, I don't recommend it. It was stupid, but I wanted to see who her heart was at or whatever. I was reading some stupid book probably. And I showed up with a pair of like worn off, our first date, torn off shorts and nasty looking boots and a hat. I looked like a big, because I just wanted, and my thought was
had torn
gross.
Off shorts and you had boots.
Like those, the Timberlands or whatever they are. Like
predicting you.
Not cowboy boots. No, they were still gross. Like I was like an old pair of anyway.
I love cowboy boots, but I've never worn them shorts.
It's not. I wasn't bringing sexy back by any stretch of the imagination, and that was definitely not a style. But in my opinion, that was what I was wanting to see where her heart was at. Was she more attracted to me in the physical sense, or and granted, to her, in her defense, she stuck with me. The relationship didn't work out, but she at least was in it for the right reasons. That was not a great. I was young and stupid and immature on my end. Like I should have done a better job of trying to be the better version of and there's nothing wrong with that either at that point. You don't have to go to the extreme that I went to.
I agree. I think you want to be, if it's first date, you want her to see you the best.
Yeah.
And then maybe by third date, you can wear your whatevers.
Yeah.
But you want to make a good impression on somebody.
You do, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially if it's in a biblical, spiritual context. Like you're really trying to do this, and you know where your heart's at, and they can pick that up. I will say that in that same vein, making a good first impression is good. There's nothing wrong with after a certain time frame of dating to allow that person. I had to tell Amanda some of the things that I had done in my past when I started getting really serious. Like, hey, here's things that I've done. You need to be aware of these things. I feel like it's applicable for you to know these things, whether you want to continue to move forward or not. This is your call, but that was an appropriate time. It wasn't 2 or 3 times into the dating relationship and they're like, hey, here's all this stuff that I've done, but it was in the appropriate time. There's nothing wrong with that either. I want to clarify that, I guess.
I had a guy I counseled years and years and years ago, and he came in, he said, I can't get second dates. And I said, well, tell me what you do. He said, well, I've always heard how important it is for a man to be open and transparent and vulnerable. And the first date, he was telling every girl he dated everything. Yeah. And she would just sit there, and I said, well, how long? Well, sometimes it's an hour or two. And I'm going, okay, we need to back up a little bit. Those are things you tell later on after you kind of see where this is going to go, not first date.
Do you think that men have created unrealistic expectations for the women that they're trying to date?
In like what we want?
What we want from the woman, what we are envisioning our relationship to be, that we have been fed something from the world in different capacities, and that we're attributing that to this relationship as well.
Oh yeah, I think we get so many mixed messages things, whether it's family of origin, whether it's other people's families, whether it's media, TV, movies, all those kind of things. I think we get this deal, and I always encourage singles to make a list of what they really want in what's really important, and things like that would be on. You want them to be a believer, want them to be funny. I mean, I try to get people get like 10 things that really are essential and non-negotiable for you. and then make your other list of things. If these happen, this would be kind of bonuses. And so you've got kind of a grid to pass somebody through of that has the basic things you're looking at, and doing that before you meet somebody.
Yeah. But there's so much of, that's great, and so much of what the negative side of that, you have porn, you have movies, you have sports, you have entertainment.
All things that
can take away from some of that as well.
Yeah, and so I think you have to be very aware of that, and I think we see so many things that can seem exciting or alluring in our culture. Bottom line, they're not. I mean, when you look at, there's a lot of train wreck marriages in Hollywood and different places. Not to pick on them, but so
it's just the truth, though. You're not picking on anybody. I think that's just legitimately the truth.
Because when you hear of someone that has a long-term relationship, long-term marriage, you think, wow, there's something special about them.
I want to know more about
that
what
person.
they do, as opposed to the people that have been divorced 5 or 6 times. You're like,
right.
I don't want to know how they did it. And that's a great illustration of who you're modeling relationships that you're modeling. You are wanting to model yours off of as well. So like, who are the people around you that have healthy relationships, marriage-wise, that you can go and talk to, or that you can say, hey, what they are doing is incredible. I would like that. I want to know how to do that. And then just sitting down with them and talking to them before you even started dating the girl or even having a relationship. There's nothing wrong with having positive, healthy relationships in front of you.
No, I think that's good. And I think if you can find something like that in your church, and maybe right now you just say to the guy, hey, could I hang out with you some over the next couple of months? And just talk about dating, relationships. What did you do? What are y'all doing now? What do I need to look for? Get some wisdom from somebody that's been through it that looks like that they have a successful marriage. Because you don't want somebody, if you're going out to just get somebody that's hot and good looking that you can marry, and because sex will be exciting. Yeah. Okay, that's all great and needs to be a part of a marriage, but there's so much more. And if it's just based on sex over time, that's not going to hold the marriage together. No. It's got to be the icing on the cake. But the other things have to be there, and so if they're not, eventually the marriage is going to probably unravel.
Yeah, and having those good role models, examples to have that set will help you keep balanced long term. Do you? A lot of men today are longing and looking desperately for the relationship that they're supposed to be in there, and there's a lot of men though on the other side of things. That are not. They're taking their time. They've got. I don't have to be 25 and married. I don't have to be 35 and married. Like, I want to have a career, a successful business. I want to have done well in my life, or I'm just not in a rush, whatever it might be. There's two sides of that spectrum where there's a rush too quick to jump into it.
Yes.
And I think there is a time frame there where you're like, okay, you're waiting way too long because you're just not. There's a danger to that as well, I guess is what I'm saying. Do you do you feel like today's society, it's pushing men to either be getting married quick, like 20, 21, you're 22, you're married, or that they're pushing them to wait as long as they possibly can, to have that success version of it? I guess that's two questions, and let's ask one. Like, first off, do you feel like men are pushed too soon, early in their relationship and early in their life, to get married sooner? And the other question on top of that would be, do you feel like society is asking men to wait longer because you have to have a certain success rate or be successful in certain ways?
Yeah, and I think it goes back maybe what you said earlier about the culture that you are in.
Yeah.
I don't hear a lot of guys expressing pressure to get married young that I talk to.
Yeah.
And I think that I think where guys get in trouble, though, I think the longer a guy is a bachelor and if he's living by himself, you get in some habits, and guys seem to settle into that pretty easily. And so there's a lot more. The farther you go down that road, there's more to break. And I've had guys that just really struggle. They met somebody at 35, and so they fall in love. They want to get married. But man, living as a bachelor for 20 years, and then all of a sudden doing that can be some downside. And I think the other thing guys don't think about, we don't think about a biological clock. Yeah. And the women out there do, and they know what their biological clock is, and in their mind, they kind of have, I want to have a kid by here, and if I go this far, I don't know if I can have a child because I'm higher risk or whatever. So a lot goes into it from that standpoint with a woman also.
And success, a lot of men say, hey, we want to have so much money. I've talked to them, I want to have money in the bank account this much. I push back in that context. I don't think it's wrong to want to have to be established to some degree. I don't think that's always a bad thing. binding stretch the imagination. But when your focus becomes that and not what God is wanting for this relationship, you tend to focus more on that than you do on doing what God is and trusting God in what He's giving you and providing for you. And there's got to be a happy medium. Yes, there's got to be a level of success, and moving that direction is fine. But you also have to trust God and say, hey, we may not be where we're at, but we're supposed to be married now, and all my ducks are in a row, and that's okay. At least that's absolutely my opinion personally, is what I see. I encourage men to go ahead and just get married, and the rest will fall into place.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that depends a lot. If you've got a woman that's expecting certain things that you can't provide, well, then maybe you need to relook at the relationship.
Yeah, if she's putting pressure on you from that standpoint, like, I want this A, B, and C, and you're feeling this expectation that is not of, that's warning signs, I think.
Yeah.
You better kind of be running the other direction to some degree, or listening.
Which is a good point to bring up. If you're really seeking and you're praying and you see warning signs, or God showing you warning signs, the time to run is before you get to the altar.
Yes.
And don't be afraid to do that. And I've had people that have broken it up the last week before the wedding. It was hard, but I think they would all say that was the right thing to do and the best thing to do in those situations.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. There's definitely spending the rest of your life in a terrible relationship is not worth it if you can end it before you even get married. Like, it's better to end it then. It's as hard as it is now. It's 10 times harder 10 years down the road. Like, it's definitely not worth it. Not something that's fun to do, but it's definitely worthwhile. And you should be going to pre-marriage counseling. You guys should be seeking people and advice and conversations all the time beforehand to ensure that this is the best it can possibly be and the healthiest it can possibly be. So all of those things are absolutely important. Now, when it comes to dating and finding the right places to find the right women that you're looking for, we've given you some suggestions, some of which you probably have already heard. And you're like, Colby, Dr. Ken, I've tried these things, it's just not working. I can't seem to find the right person, or I'm not finding anybody, and I'm starting to just get a little bit frustrated. What would you say to somebody in that situation? I
think that's hard. One thing that we didn't talk about, and I think it is when you've got a friend that wants to set you up. Now, you got to trust that friend. Yeah. There's some things that go into that. So that would be another way. But I think what I would say to someone, spend some time working on yourself. Yeah. We've got a great tool at Awesome Marriage. It's called Dating God for 21 Days, I think. And it's basically just getting in touch with God and your relationship with Him, and to prepare you to go out and maybe be a better version of yourself when you do go out looking for someone. And I think praying and trusting God, my experience is if God's laid that on your heart to be married, that He comes through. The timing may be not exactly what you want, but I think He comes through. And so I think it's being patient. I think it's not settling, because I think sometimes we do that and then we regret it. Yep. It's just being patient, continue to do the things that help you be the person that God wants you to be. Yeah.
And also at the same time, I would say putting yourself in the right situations. It's one thing to say I want to wait for God just to bring the right person to me, and I'm just going to sit and wait. And I think to some degree that's exactly right. You should be healthy. You should be moving forward, but you're also, if you're just waiting and you're not doing something on your end to also look and put yourself in a situation where that person, where you might be able to find Mrs. Right there, is something to consider as well. You need to be also being proactive at times. I have a sister who she just got married a year ago now. A little over a year ago, and she's 35 when she got married, and she waited. She did it right, and she put herself out there in the right situation, and the right person came along. His name is Brent, and they've got a great marriage. It's incredible. It's fun to watch and see God move. That's not always what people want to hear. At 35, I'm going to find the right person, but her life, her marriage is so much better now, as opposed if she would have gone and tried to do other things that would have put her in a
trying to make something happen,
compromising situations. But you do need to also take some steps too on your end to be making sure you're being proactive and looking for that in that as well.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we've got to look in the mirror and look at ourselves. I mean, if you've got good friends and they have good wives, long-term girlfriends that are getting ready to get married, and none of them are offering to set you up with somebody, I would talk to them. I would say, why aren't you not? Because And I think sometimes we don't want hard feedback, and sometimes we won't give it, but sometimes that can be the kindest thing you do with somebody. Say, hey, there's something that if you would change this a little bit, it probably would help.
You can't talk about Call of Duty every time we get together with
Exactly.
and how you've leveled up to level 50 prestige or whatever, and you're dominant. That's what's killing you right now. I can't offer somebody to you that's when you're focused on that. Yeah, that's great. Feedback is important. You've got to be willing to take that. You look like a grizzly bear. Like you got to.
If you've gotten to be good friends with your best friend's wife, have her sit in on that conversation because you need her perspective.
Yeah. Friends, family, as much as they can honestly hurt at times what they say, they truly are one of the best gauges for the person that who you are and what's causing you maybe not to have a relationship, or the person that you're dating, and say, hey, they're a good gauge. Like, yes, she is or she is not. Like, I'm seeing these things. You need to be aware. Those are great people to have around you when it comes to
absolutely
to your relationship. So we definitely want the best for you, and we want you to have a healthy relationship. If you want to be married and that's where God has placed on your heart to do that, we want to help in every way that we possibly can, and we believe in that for you as well. We know it's not easy, and I think that, like you've said it so well, Dr. Kim, but dating today in today's society is so much more challenging than it was even for me 16, 17 years ago, for you 20 years ago. It's been a little more than 20 years ago, but it's been so much more challenging. Technology, the different distractions, pornography, casual sex, everything that's just permeating who we are as men, and kind of controlling what we're supposed to be thinking about or how we're supposed to be approaching women and what that looks like. I feel like there's a lot of awkwardness today in dating relationships, and there used to be, because we just don't know how to do things like we used to at the same time. Nobody's teaching that.
And I think a lot of times groups like college and stuff, they're just a bunch of guys against girls get together, and it's more challenging, but don't give up on it.
Don't give up. God's timing is perfect, and He always works out on His timing and not our own, and it's worth it.
Something else I learned, I think, and I've said this before, it's been a long time since I said this, but I had not real serious relationships before Nancy, but I had 2 or 3 that were pretty serious, and it was hard when each one of them broke up. But what I learned was each one of those had something that I wanted. Yeah. And when I met Nancy, it's like, oh crud, she's got all of them plus. Yeah. And it was so clear that she was the one. So I think you learn from every dating experience.
Absolutely.
And so the different people, and you learn what you want and what works with you, and what kind of person is going to be drawn to you, all those kind of things. So even though dating can be tough, I think you learn from it, and God can use that to help you see the right person when that person comes.
And honoring, it's right on, and honoring God with your relationship, putting Him first and foremost, is going to be a guarantee that regardless of whether this relationship works out or not, that it's going to be moving in the right direction, that you're going to leave this person better than when you found them. And that's one of the goals I think any man should have. If you're dating someone, even if it doesn't work out, are you leaving them better than before you started dating them at the same time? So God, putting Him first and foremost in every priority, and not listening to what the world says you have to be able to do when it comes to a dating relationship, is going to make you feel better, and it's going to have a healthier version of your future dating relationship with the woman that you're wanting to have.
Yeah. So should these relationships be sexual?
I don't know.
No.
I feel like that's a pretty...
I think it's something the reason I just decided to say it, because our culture is so countercultural now. Yep. And yet the couples I know that have chosen to be pure, or to take that off the table in their dating relationship so they can really get to know each other. I mean, Vince and I started having sex when we were dating, I wouldn't...
It complicates it.
It complicates things. And that's kind of, as a guy, that's what your focus comes. Yeah. And you don't develop a relationship like you need to. So be patient. Yep. The sex will come, and when it does, it will be much better if you've laid the groundwork ahead of time. And
coming from someone who was sexually active before he met his wife, and understanding the complications, trust me when I tell you that it changes the whole dynamic of the relationship before we were dating, from what I really truly wanted in this relationship as to what I was trying to get from it, and it distorted the way that I looked at it. And I wasn't any longer treating the woman the way that she needed to be treated. I was looking at it from what can I get from this relationship, not what can I give for this relationship. And it really took a hard change on my perspective, and Amanda helping me understand that, to what it looked like to make a relationship healthy. And I'm glad that it ended up differently between Amanda and I, and it was better for that. But I've done it both ways. And I can tell you waiting is so much better than
Yeah, absolutely. And you just, God teaches you things. The best sex is what God's design is. And so the world doesn't give us that. So taking time with the woman God has for you, once you find that woman, to date, to get to know each other, to get married, and let that sex relationship develop, you will never regret that.
Never read it. Thanks for listening today. You guys are worth it. We're praying for your relationship. We're praying for your future spouse, and she's out there. Don't give up. Keep waiting and keep watching and keep trusting God and all of that. So thanks for listening today. As we say every week, we want to encourage you to
become the leader God created you to be.
Thanks for listening.
See you next month.
See y'all.